Our mission stretches far beyond our borders. God's family knows no borders. In your life, you face daily trials, but millions of believers in other lands face far worse. They are mocked and persecuted for the crime of loving God. To every religious dissident trapped in that cold, cruel existence, we send our love and support. Our message: you are not alone. You are not forgotten. Do not lose your faith and hope, because someday you too will be free.
Well, that was President Ronald Reagan speaking to a group of evangelical voters back in 1983, a group that supported him strongly back in 1980 and then would help deliver his landslide win in the coming re-election. Fast forward to today's presidential race, and new questions about whether the evangelical voting bloc can and will help put Governor Romney over the top in key states where the polls are extremely tight right now. Joining me now, Tony Perkins, head of the Family Research Center, and Michael Reagan, chairman of the Reagan Group. And couldn't think of two better guys to talk to about this. Let me start with you on this, Michael, since we picked it up with your dad and the overwhelming support that he had among evangelical voters. We did some number crunching. He led Carter in 1980 by 16 points with the voting bloc, and then when he went against Mondale, he led by almost 40 points with that voting bloc. How important were the evangelicals to your dad's political success?
Oh, the moral majority, the evangelicals, they were a huge difference in the campaign and in the elections, showing up for my father back in 1980 and also in 1984. And they could be huge in this election, in Ohio, in Florida, Colorado, Virginia. It's incumbent upon them to show up at the polls and vote tomorrow, as they did for my father. That's what my father, if my father could speak to evangelicals today, he would tell them it's incumbent upon them to show up and to vote.
That is what we're hearing from many, many Catholic priests and other ministers from the pulpit, Tony Perkins, in Sunday Mass and Sunday services across the country. The churches are seeming, without saying go vote for Mitt Romney, to come out and say, vote for life, vote for the principles that you talk about in church. Is this going to make a difference tomorrow?
No question about it. And I would say to Michael that his father is speaking to the evangelicals. In fact, yesterday when I spoke at a church outside of Dayton, I quoted his father from a speech he made in Dallas in 1984, where he said, if we ever cease to be one nation under God, we will cease to be a nation. We'll be a nation gone under. And in fact, that's the sense. People realize with the hostility, and I also quoted from the Democratic Convention that you played earlier, where they voted God off the political island, and they may find themselves stranded as a result because people are realizing what this is about. And I think evangelicals, the polling is showing it. I'm seeing it as we've crisscrossed the country, 28 states now, a lot of time here in these swing states. Evangelicals are energized beyond what I have ever seen in my political career, which has been almost 20 years now.
Really? Why?
I think it's driven primarily by the current administration's policies that are hostile to religion. I mean, the Catholic Church coming out so boldly, giving voter guides out in Mass yesterday and over the weekend, focusing on this mandate that has come down as a result of Obamacare. There's a clear infringement upon religious freedom. The president talks about the freedom of worship, but Americans and evangelicals care about the freedom of religion. Worship's what happens, an hour a week. Religion is the freedom of religion is the ability to live your life according to the teachings of your faith, and they see that as under attack by this president.
Michael, some may find that surprising because many people believed that the folks on the left were going to try to make an issue of Mitt Romney's Mormon faith and try to divide the rest of the Christian faith from Mormonism somehow.
No, I think they absolutely tried to do that, but it did not work. And I think the Christian community, evangelicals, finally figured out this is about electing a president. This isn't about, nominating or electing the pastor to your church. This is about the country. This is about the soul of the United States of America. I would suggest people go home tonight and go on YouTube and find A Time for Choosing, given by my dad. Talks about a rendezvous with destiny. He's talking about the soul of America. And tomorrow's election, I think the evangelicals get it, is about the soul of America. I mean, my father wasn't concerned about the politics so much, Megan. He was concerned about soul. I remember sitting with my father at dinner with the family one time, and we had Ron and Patty, and Ron's an atheist, and he was talking about his atheism, and my dad reached over, he grabbed my hand, and he said, you know, I'm not concerned about Ron's politics. I'm concerned about his soul. I hope he accepts Christ like I have and you have. That's what my father was concerned about. And tomorrow it is about the soul of America.
You know, Tony, the evangelicals, for whatever reason, did not come out for John McCain back in 2008. They did for President George W. Bush, in particular in 2004, when gay marriage was on a lot of the state ballots. But, you know, we're told that it could be any place from 1.6 million to 6 million voters we're talking about on the evangelical vote, including critical numbers in states like Florida, Ohio, Colorado, and Virginia. If these folks are getting ready to offer some sort of groundswell of support for Mitt Romney tomorrow, do you believe that's being reflected in the polls that are showing this as a razor-tight race?
Not necessarily, because I think, as you talked earlier today, the modeling most polling firms are using are based upon the 08 turnout. And I think what I'm seeing on the ground here in Ohio, for instance, you know, our values bus has been in 28 states over the last 14 months. 70,000 miles we've racked up, and we've registered over close to 500,000, 500,000 new values voters. In Ohio in particular, about 340,000 evangelical social conservatives did not show up in 2008 who voted in 2004. And being on the ground here in Ohio, I can tell you more activity is going on in this election that actually happened in 2004. I would not be surprised to see the evangelical social conservative turnout eclipse what we saw in 2004.
Wow. And we'll know, because that's one of the questions they asked the voters, and so we'll find out to some extent what the evangelical presence is tomorrow night. Guys, thank you both so much. Tony, Michael, all the best to you.
Thank you.
Megan.
Well, with voters set to head to the polls